Homeschooling has been the best decision that I could have made for my family, for my children, for my marriage, for myself as well. And I am so incredibly thankful that I've gotten to be able to have this opportunity. I remember when I was 17 years old deciding what career I wanted. I knew that I wanted a 4-year degree and no more, because at some point I wanted to be a homeschool mom. This was at a time when I wasn't even dating anybody. And so when my husband proposed to me, it was kind of a requisite that I was going to homeschool our children. And so he knew that, but now actually living that, it's it's very surreal, and I'm so thankful that I've gotten to do that. But I'm not going to lie, in the very beginning, it was a little bit scary. There was a lot of times when I felt like, am I doing the right thing? What if I'm missing some things that I should be teaching my children? So I want to address a lot of the things that went right, a lot of the things that I didn't like, just to give you any information in case you're wondering about homeschool, what it's like, and is it actually like something you should be scared of? Because to me, it's been a huge blessing. I just can't say enough good things about it. Anytime people ask me, I always have lots of positive things to say about homeschooling. And even my daughter, when people ask her where she goes to school, she'll say with mommy, and then they'll ask her if it's fun, and she always enthusiastically says yes. And it's just, it goes to show, it's an amazing thing. My children have bloomed. I've seen them just grow and be more respectful, be more responsible. It's just all around been an awesome blessing. So at the risk of me ranting throughout this video, because I'm so passionate about this, I am going to timestamp this video so that you can kind of skip around to different sections. I am going to talk about the curriculum that I use. I use a Christian curriculum that I find to be really fun and just perfect for a minimalist like me. And then I also want to share with you some of the manipulatives that I have, some of the books that I have. So I've laid out a lot of different things to share with you. I'll touch on the manipulatives at the end because I don't have them out here. But let's go.
And by the way, this video is not sponsored. I always forget to mention that. So yeah, none of these things are things that I have been paid for or gifted or anything like that. I have paid with my own money, and it's just things that I genuinely like. And I'll also share what I didn't like, actually. But yeah, not sponsored.
Okay, so first things first, let me share with you how I got my child to read before she was 4. This is basically all that I have used for that. And the very first thing that I did is when my daughter was not even 1 really, I would do some flashcards with her. And for my toddler now, he's 2, I basically take about 10 to 15 minutes and I go through these flashcards. It's not even anything that's major. I just go through colors, numbers, shapes, and this is the biggie, sounds. Basically phonetics. Instead of saying C, I said K. Instead of saying J, I said J. Instead of saying B, I say B. So I remember my daughter had physical therapy for a short time, and they were wondering why she didn't know the alphabet at that time. And I said, this is intentional, but at the time, even though she didn't know the alphabet, like the ABC, she could already read. And that's something that I think sets kids back, is the sooner you can get them reading, the faster everything else will go. So to me, getting them reading is like my number 1 priority. And this, doing it phonetically, has been absolutely key in doing so. So this book has been a huge resource. This is what I used for my daughter. I haven't started it with my 2-year-old yet, but it is definitely what we're going to do. And what I did was, after they mastered these little cards and they could actually say the letter sounds, is I would add flashcards that had symbols. So R, Ch, Ing. And this book has been a tremendous, tremendous resource. It has a lot of different symbols that help them differentiate things like versus E. And then what it does is it starts them just kind of blending. It allows them to practice adding the sounds. So versus if you taught them the letter names, all they would know is AM. What is that? Like, that doesn't help them learn how to read am. So I didn't want to go backwards with them. I wanted to teach them first the sounds, and then to be able to blend. And then eventually I taught them the letter names, of course. But so for example, this has different symbols that they will learn, and then they'll be able to know that that's not that's C, T, because the little A is smaller. So anyways, this book has been huge, huge, huge help. And it also had lots of really fun stories that my daughter really enjoyed. Like for a while, even after she could read other books, she just really wanted to read these stories because it had a lot of cute little pictures and cute little stories. And it also, the way that it has the punctuation, it doesn't confuse them in the very beginning, and it slowly builds, slowly builds, slowly builds until they're reading more complete sentences. So I absolutely recommend this to anybody that wants to teach their child to read, even if you don't want to homeschool. Any child that's not reading yet, this is a huge, huge, huge help. So what I did was I had my own little just alphabet sounds, and then I added the symbols that they have on the book in little flashcards. Like this is ow, like loud, so things like that. So these were super helpful in getting them to read. So this is basically something that I do just a few minutes, 10, 15 minutes every single day. And then once they did that, I progressed to this. So once my daughter was reading, she was able to start practicing sight words. Sight words is not something that I taught early on because I wanted her to actually learn how to blend, to read, not to memorize. And then I bought these off of Amazon, so it just has different levels. And then we would do like one level of flashcards that she would learn, and then go on to the next one, and then go on to the next one. So you can see that's really not even that much. It's not even that expensive. I know there's lots of courses and things that you can buy online to teach your kids to read, but this was basically all I used. So you don't need to do a whole lot of things, and you can even write a lot of those flashcards yourself. But this book I highly, highly recommend. And then the other thing is that reading and writing kind of go hand in hand. So once my kids were toddlers, so like they could like grip a pencil, I did dot to dot papers. There's tons of free printables that you can use online if you don't want to buy a book or you don't have the access to things like that. But for me, I have definitely enjoyed these write and wipe books, so they can write on them and then I just wipe them off and they can use them again. And they have been heavily used. This is what my daughter used and my toddler is now using. And so basically I'm teaching them how to grab the pencil correctly and then just follow the dots, follow and coordinate. And it starts off easy with little lines, and then it goes to curves. So this is just pre-writing and getting them to learn how to write. And then the other one that I have found really helpful, which I had to get my son his own because my daughter she overly used hers and it was not in good condition. But little things like this where they can learn how to actually start the letters and where do they begin. And it has little dots that they use to be able to learn the correct way to write the letters. Got to clean that up. But anyways, these little dot books have been super helpful. I always start when they're toddlers with dot to dot. Or you can even do seek and find, so they kind of learn how to circle. Those have been really fun too. And then eventually, once they are coordinating correctly, then I progress to letters. This one I wanted to share with you, even though it's not one that I loved, it's not one that my daughter loved, but maybe your kids will find helpful. This one is one that I saw recommended by a pretty popular YouTuber on homeschooling, and it just didn't work for me. And it has a lot of words that they can just practice reading after they've already kind of started that book, but it was really boring. There's no pictures, there's no excitement, it was just boring. It has a lot of rhyming things, but my daughter did not like it. For me, I find that when you make reading fun, that's when kids want to do it, and that book had lots of cool stories. So this one was recommended by JDA, I believe, but nope, it did not work for me. Also, I want to mention that this is no bash to her. I found her content really helpful, and I've found content from other YouTubers that talk about homeschooling super helpful, but something that I made a mistake in is that I felt like I had to have tons of things, and I had to do all of these little homemade things to make homeschooling work, and it only made me feel overwhelmed, and it made me feel less than, and it made me stressed out. So simplifying it, just having a few things that work, has been super helpful. So for my daughter, I was making a lot of like homemade little binders, little activities that she would fill out, and I was making them or printing them, and it was just too overwhelming and too stressful. And then I just started to simplify it down, and the curriculum that I've found I have just genuinely loved because it is so simplified but still fun and still Christian, and it instills values to them in a subtle way that can just be a form of communication with them, where you could just have a really good chat about a story and the values that it shares with you without like it being boring to them. So to me, that was really important, that it be fun and that it be simple and it be Christian. So the curriculum that has worked for me is The Good and the Beautiful. I have so loved this curriculum. This one is a level 1 book because we're done with literature, the kindergarten literature for my daughter, but it has so many fun little activities for them. It has like just trying to figure out little puzzles. But one of the things that I love about this curriculum is that it has, for example, this had a little painting activity and art. It really infuses art into it. So she was learning about tints and shades. And I remember going to a museum one time and she said, "Look, Mommy, this is so detailed. It has tints and shades." And like for me, I couldn't think of myself as a 5-year-old caring about art or noticing techniques in the way that paintings are made. So that's something that I've really valued, is that it has a lot of emphasis on art appreciation as well. This one is the first grade level math, and I wanted to show just briefly the way that the book looks because it has lots of different activities for them. So this was a game that we played in order to her so that she can learn how to count hundreds, and we were playing and she had lots of fun. And it also teaches them, like, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, like teaching them how to be good losers too, because that's important. And then just little coloring activities here and there. So it has a lot of different things within the book. One of the things that I loved within these books too is that it also has a lot of activities where it has cutouts that you don't have to prep for. Like it will tell you cut this out. I'd have to find one here, but we've made like a little cat where it had the ability to color. She had a little poem that was about cats and didn't have to get any supplies for it. And all the supplies that you need for these are very easy things like cotton swabs or things that you may have in your home. Because I'm kind of minimal, I don't have usually those things, so I have to go to my mom and be like, "Hey, you got any cotton swabs, cotton balls, things like that." But anyway, I like that they put the attention into making things that are kind of simple. So for example, this little thing, it's eating the flies. We had lots of fun with that. It's just a really cool way to make words fun and to make reading fun. For the kindergarten curriculum especially, this is new because this is for my 2-year-old. I loved it so much that I went ahead and bought it. But so this, for example, is a little writing pad that he can start to practice writing. It has little coloring activities. It has little dot tracing activities. And what I love about Good and the Beautiful is if you go on their website and you don't have the budget to buy some of these things, or you're just not sure if you want their curriculum, they have a lot of free stuff online. I have actually printed, let me see if I can find it. I printed some of them before I went and bought them from their books because they're free. You can just go and print out their little worksheets and doodles for pre-writing and then just do it at home. So you don't have to actually buy a lot of the things that they have. And I thought that that was super helpful, super awesome that they have that option available. And then this little box was their manipulatives. This is one of the reasons that I absolutely love the curriculum, is the boxes for the manipulatives are so small. So we use these little sticks for spatial activities in different ways. So they'd like practice copying a different arrangement. We'd use them for tapping, like to play games, for counting. We'd use these little pawns to play games all the time. And that was like one of her favorite things. She loved to play these little games. We used the little cars to go through the pages and count to different numbers. So it just really made learning fun, but it made it like easy for me, so I don't have to grab a whole bunch of things and feel like I need to prep lots of lessons. Like the lessons are already there, it tells me what to do, and it's just small. Like there's not a bunch of things that I need to keep track of. One of the things that I like too is that it came with a bunch of these little books that are simple and easy for them to read, especially in the very beginning. It was super awesome because it builds that confidence of, "Look, Mommy, I read that entire book by myself." So that was something that my daughter really enjoyed. And other little resources that I'd recommend for younger kiddos is just little simple books that they can read and feel proud of themselves for reading. So I have these from when I was little, Frog and Toad and Mouse Soup. They're just kind of fun books. But this Bob Books pack is one that I think I bought off of Amazon. I'm not sure. But these basically are little tiny books, just kind of like these, that are simple and they're really fun and they rhyme. They're just kind of silly, but they start to feel accomplishment and just they feel proud of themselves and start to gain more confidence as they are able to read their own books. So these I've also found really helpful. Okay, so I talked about the curriculum, and now I want to share with you some of the books that I have loved. And I just want to start off by saying that you don't have to purchase books for your children. You can take use of libraries. And even if you can't go to a physical library, a lot of them have ebooks available, so you don't necessarily have to buy a lot of these things. But I just wanted to talk about overall what kinds of books I've liked and that have worked for me. For me, a lot of these I have picked up at thrift stores. So for example, this plants book talks about roots and stems and how photosynthesis works, and it explains it in a simple level. I've read this to my daughter a few times, and we talk about plants. It just depends on their interests. Me being a nurse, of course, I'm going to be obsessed about the human body and talk about anatomy, and we've definitely talked about different bones and muscles and things like that. Yeah, I'm obsessed with anatomy and biology, so I can't wait to shove that down her throat. But she has enjoyed it. She's enjoyed it, and especially if you just kind of go at it based on their interests at the moment. That's one of the things that I love about homeschool, is they have different changing interests. And being a homeschooling mom, I can be attuned to that and notice, oh, right now she's really into plants. I can read about that. Ooh, she's interested in how her bones work. Well, we can read about that. So just being able to recognize the different abilities that they have, different hobbies, different interests. So just different little books on extracurricular activities. So for right now, she's young, so we're not necessarily doing science or history currently, but we're reading books related to. So like solar system, anatomy. This little mammoth book I picked up at was it a Barnes & Noble or something like that? It has lots of different topics on biology, pH scales, plants, photosynthesis, things like that. Again, me being a nurse, this is going to be something that I heavily focus on because I love it, because it's fun, because I used to read my giant biology book for fun. Such a nerd. But the other books that I have found really helpful, this was a pack that I bought off of Amazon. I don't remember how much they cost, but this is the Magic School Bus. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with the Magic School Bus books because they made topics like that, like about the senses, really fun. And my daughter, being the really smart 5-year-old that she is, asked me, like, why are they inside their body? I'm like, it's not real. But anyway, so besides having to explain that it's just a story, it makes it really fun so that they can learn about things that are science related, and it just in a fun way. So this has been super helpful. I really love the Magic School Bus to cover science for little kids. And then another thing that I would personally recommend is lots of rhyming books. Kids love rhyming books. Ooh, I need to go get it. My 2-year-old has a book on excavators and dump trucks and things like that, and he absolutely loves it and can actually recite it by memory now because he's just read it so much. Digger, dozer, dumper. It's not teaching him about like amazing things. I mean, machines, well, I guess I meant machines are amazing things. Never mind, I'll take that back. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, because we've read this so much and it rhymes, he can recite it by memory. My goodness, if a 2-3-year-old can recite one of these books by memory, like what can't they learn? Or what values or prayers or things like that can't they learn? They can. So these 2 little books, I think I picked them up at a Walmart. I have one of these for Easter time, and then one for Christmas time, and it has lots of cute little rhymes and cute little photos of sheep, the really woolly. So they have just little prayers, and they come with a little verse, small little verse that they've kind of memorized, and little prayers. So this has been something that's really cute, that's fun. I also have like this story of Jonah, which it has the story of Jonah but in a rhyme. Anthony DeStefano is an author that I absolutely love. He makes such beautiful books that have rhymes, but then at the same time, they just kind of talk about the consequences of everything. So for example, the sheep that no one could find, it's this little sheep that decides he's just going to go and leave and he's going to be better off. But then bad things happen and he gets a little bit sad and he gets in danger, and and eventually he is saved, of course, by our Savior, by Jesus. But anyway, so this is just a really fun way to have conversations with children about decisions, about God's love, and in a simple and fun way. So I've really loved Anthony DeStefano's books. This one is also one that I absolutely love. It's called A Saint a Day. Basically what it talks about is different people that have lived out their Christian faith, and it talks about them and what they have done and how their life has been a blessing, but then also it kind of has usually a little prayer down here, like, Jesus, help me to hear you when I pray, or things like that. Just, it has little prayers. So for example, I can't remember what day it was. My daughter and I were reading about somebody that started an orphanage. So that was a really good opportunity for her to ask, and she asked me, what is that? What is an orphan? So And oddly enough, after that night, she ended up praying for kids who don't have mommies and daddies. So this is just a really beautiful way to talk to kids about what does it mean to live a Christian life? What does it mean to live out your values? So it's simple. It just has like the dates of when the people lived. It has a Bible verse, and then it has a little short tidbit about them and a little prayer. So kind of like a little devotional, but I think this is really cute and helpful for kids, and especially because it's small and it's simple. To me, like all the things that can be simple but fun is what I go for. And then this, I thought I'd share with you. I do have some things that are in Spanish because I am bilingual, I'm Mexican, so you best believe my kids are going to learn Spanish. And it's helpful to have them books that are bilingual, that I have an English section, Spanish section, so that they can practice that, and then writing in Spanish. So this is just me. Okay, and let's get on to the manipulative. So this is something that I have them do every day. This is, I would recommend for you to have, is not this particular one. This is one that I picked up for like 75 cents. I think it was like a Goodwill or something like that. Having a little calendar for them that they can draw on the calendar, and they can color it, and then they can fill in the dates, fill in their own calendar to have them start to learn time. This helped my daughter learn the days of the week, the months, like what was yesterday, what's tomorrow, what was 1 week from now, things like that. And then every single day I have her write the date. And this was a little printable that I got for free online, so I'm sure if you just look up a little dates calendar, you could find things like that. I don't even remember where I got it. Basically, I just make copies of it every single time. I would really recommend that. If I can find something similar on Amazon or somewhere, I'll link it in case you're looking for something like that. But that's been something really helpful for us. Okay, and now let's talk about manipulatives. So this is basically, I mean, for the most part, pretty much everything that I have as far as manipulatives. I don't have a whole lot, but there are some that I definitely consider to be essential to me. So for example, we live in the United States, and for me, it was essential that I have a map, basically a puzzle that was a map of the United States. Why? Because not all kids are visual, and for them to be able to manipulate the pieces of a puzzle, it just allows them to learn in a movement way, basically a tactile way. They can actually manipulate it and see it and feel the shape of Texas or things like that. So whatever country you live in, I would definitely recommend a map puzzle, basically. And then the other one that I have, this one was one that they absolutely love. This one I picked up off of Amazon, and it's a squishy foam puzzle of the world. And it also has flags, but that way they start to learn like the cities of the different locations. So this one has the United States, but then there's also Europe, and then North and South America, and then just the world map down here. And my kids love it. Even my 2-year-old, he absolutely loves being able to participate in that. He usually does the North and South America, and he's like, oh, he feels so proud when he's able to put the little foam pieces in. But it's just a really fun way too, and they love the fact that it's squishy. So I think they honestly love this one more than just the regular puzzle, because I mean, who doesn't love a foam puzzle? Something else that I would personally recommend, not necessarily this, is some sort of money management system. So this is something that we purchased off of Etsy. It says give, save, spend. You can do jars. If you have jars or little box, you can make them do a DIY, but I definitely want to teach my kids, once they know how to count, how to spend money. So my 5-year-old is starting to count money, so she gets money when she does certain chores, and then she's now able to count, and it's something that really teaches them that money can be fun and it can be used for good. So for example, we recently went to visit a friend, and she, out of her give box, bought that friend a cake, and she felt so proud of herself because she went to the store and she picked it out and she gave it to her friend. So things like that, teaching them that money is not a bad thing, that it's not something that they should fear, but just teaching them how to utilize it, and that it's for these 3 things, for giving, that they shouldn't forget that part, that they shouldn't forget saving, and that they can spend it, and it's okay. And then this next little manipulative has been one that has been incredibly helpful, especially in the earlier phases when my daughter really struggled with autism. This is something that was really, really helpful. She loves or she used to. She doesn't really deal with that much anymore, but she used to really love lining things up and sorting and just organizing. So these little things, they're called counting bears. You can use in so many different ways. Any kind of counting activity, pattern activity, sorting, it just can be used for so many different things. And it comes, I put them separately over here. It comes with little games that you can use too. So I've really enjoyed these for math and just teaching the math in a more tactile way, especially if you have a kid that just really wants to touch and fiddle with things. My 2-year-old absolutely loves this. My 5-year-old definitely was okay with the little flashcards, but he wants to touch things and manipulate things. So these sorts of activities can be really helpful for kids that love to fiddle with things. Another perfect example is I have this little tray here. This was, I think, from a thrift store, so I wouldn't even know where you'd find a shelf like that. But I have a lot of these, what is that brand? Melissa and Doug. I have a lot of little Melissa and Doug puzzles. Well, not a lot. Actually, it's only like 3. But this one is one that I really value. It teaches them how to copy these shapes, but it also can teach them shapes in a really fun way, especially, again, like I said, if they're tactile, but just to have spatial activities and creative so that they can make their own little pictures with these things. Talk about trapezoid, is it a rhombus or not, like things like that. Also, I have one of the alphabet. So I don't have a whole lot of them, but I have one of just like little words, especially once they start reading. This can have them have letters and be able to actually feel the letter. For kids that basically learn a little bit more by touching and doing and fiddling, things like this I would heavily recommend. I don't have a lot of them, but they are really helpful. Okay, so these things were the things that I had up here, and these are manipulatives that I bought online. I think it was in eBay. One of them is actually broken over here, but it's by MathUC. And MathUC has a whole curriculum and books and CD discs and stuff like that, but I bought this used, which just goes to show you can find different ways of finding things. Even if you just look up manipulatives and used, like things that people sell, this has absolutely helped my child be able to figure out what is a hundreds place, what is a tens place, and just be able to figure out how to learn that, how to count. This has been super fun for them to be able to learn counting and math, and this is something that's not a part of the Good and the Beautiful curriculum, but it's something that I personally use, and this was what I used in order to teach her alongside with that curriculum, the tens place, ones place, and now the hundreds. So not something that you don't always need to have everything. And like, maybe this seems like a lot that I have, but I mean, for both of my kiddos, like having this as manipulatives, I don't feel like it's a whole lot. I feel like it's something that I can manage and I'm not constantly having to change. And really, you can do with very little. I did forget that little counting bears actually came with these little printables, or they're not printables, they're actually just little cards. So they can learn things like tens place, 10 frames, and they can match and sort. So it came with a whole bunch of things like placing them, matching things with the color dots. It had a whole lot of resources. Sometimes you don't need to have all the things, but if you just find the things that are the most versatile, to me, that has been the most helpful. It's not feeling like I have to have everything or I have to do everything, but I just need to have the things that are versatile, that I can use in different ways, and that will fit both of my kids' needs. So will fit my visual or auditory learner, and it will fit my tactile learner. So just being able to attend to the needs of both kids with as least as possible so that you are sane as possible. And then the last thing that I want to share is these little books over here. In the very beginning, I had a lot of different little books on Jesus and just little mazes that have little verses. So you can pick up a lot of these at the dollar store. It doesn't really have to be expensive. I personally have found that my kids love more of these little like coloring style books than the activity books because they kind of get bored of these pretty quickly. And I don't know, maybe it's because they're a little bit more complicated and they're kind of younger, so going through the little activities is maybe a little bit much for them, but I still keep them. But these little, having something where they can kind of color, that can be like a devotional, something that has a little Bible verse for them that they can read or memorize, or that you can read them a story and then they can kind of do an activity to follow along, that can kind of just make learning about Jesus fun. So real quick, I want to address 2 topics, and the first is extracurriculars. First of all, it doesn't have to be something that is really expensive or that it has to be overwhelming, but you can still do a whole lot of different things on a budget. So I personally don't have Facebook, but I know that there are a lot of Facebook groups where people meet up, but you can also take kids on play days, which is something that I absolutely love to do because I have friends that have kiddos, and that way I get some mom time, but then they also get to play with their little friends. Churches, my kids definitely are, they go with me all all the time to church and involved in activities and things like that, you can also take advantage of library. The library is one of my favorite resources because they have not only free books, free puzzles, free learning activities that you can use, but they also have lots of free events that you can go to. So we went to like a free dance party, a little crafting day. They have tons of activities all the time. So just check out your resources near you. There probably are lots of things that you can do for free. And then other people might vary on this, but I personally think that if you can do some of those things in app-wise, so for example, we have a piano, and instead of me taking my kids to piano lessons and have an actual instructor, which would be a lot of money, we instead bought a piano and we have Simply Piano, which, I mean, it does have a cost. It's not even that bad. I think it was like 14 or 15 bucks a month. One of the other things that I do is I take my kids outside for an hour a day. So I just like shove them outside and like, you go play. And in the very beginning, my daughter was like, she didn't like it. She was bored. She didn't know what to do. And now they know, like, it's time to go play. They put their boots on, they go outside, and they just do whatever. And that to me is something very important, is having them outside and just doing whatever it is that they want to do. Get dirty, that's fine, and then we'll come back in. And it also kind of maintains my sanity too. But then the other thing that I wanted to talk about is you don't have to feel like you have to do everything. It really is all about your needs and your family's needs. It's so beautiful that you can really tailor it to your needs. So it doesn't have to be like the regular 8 to 5 or whatever it is that it usually is, like an 8 to 3 and Monday through Friday. You can do it on different days if that's what your schedule allows, and you can do it in shorter periods. Generally, I make lessons out of anything. So just to give you the perfect example, we were talking about mail and addresses and stamps and things like that, and learning her address and learning other people's address. So she made someone a card. She drew the card, she put it in the envelope, she wrote the address, we went to the post office, we mailed it, we talked about the process of the post office and how things get from one place to another. And to me, it's just such a beautiful, beautiful thing that I get to do that with my children. So I used to be a preceptor when I was a nurse, and that meant that I would teach new nurses. And now I kind of view my kids as my preceptees, and it's kind of funny because the way that I get to teach them, it's almost like they follow me around everywhere. So I'm not just talking about the math rules and the science and the body and all these things that are more intellectual, but I get to talk to them about life, about values, about how things work, about how their decisions affect their future, just tons of little things. One of the books that I remember from The Good and the Beautiful, there was a story that talked about listening to the good voice and listening to the wrong voice. And my daughter loved it so much that she had me read it over and over and over again. And eventually, one day when she did something that was wrong, she said, "Mommy, I listened to the bad voice, but I prayed, and I'm going to listen to the good voice now." And I thought it was so amazing because I could see it in action. I could see it in progress. And I don't know what schools are teaching my kids, but I know what I'm teaching them. And I want them to love God, and I want them to rejoice in it. I want them to see the flowers on the trees, and we get to talk about how they change and how amazing that is, and have awe and joy and just a zeal for life. So hopefully this video hasn't been too much of a rant, but it's just something that I feel very passionate about. Obviously, being a mother is something that has been an incredible blessing to me. It has changed me in so many ways that I just can't explain in this video. But homeschooling has been a tremendous blessing, and so hopefully if you have had some fears about homeschooling, this has helped a little bit, that it doesn't have to be overwhelming. But I definitely would like to make a separate video on how to simplify homeschool. But if you put up with this long rant, thank you very much. I'm sorry if I kind of speak a little bit fast. It's just, this is generally a topic that I'm passionate about. So I thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions about homeschool or anything else that you'd like to learn or hear from me referencing to homeschool, just let me know down in the comments or send me an email. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.